Hey, this is Mr. Eden. This is Chemistry Honors, and this is OChem in the house. And we're going to be doing naming alkanes with substituents for organic chemistry. So here we go. What in the world is a substituent? Well, you can see here I have a parent chain. Right here, my parent is the longest chain in my organic molecule. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 carbons long. What does 6 carbons stand for? That stands for hex, right? That's our prefix for 6 is hex. Now, you might be like, Mr. Aiden, they're all single bonds, so I know it's going to be hexane, and that is correct. We have hex for the parent chain. We have ane for my single bonds. Everything is single bonded, but do you see how I have 2 little kids coming off right there and right there? Those little kids are called substituents. They are little kitty kids. They're called substituents of the parent. Okay, so you are the substituent of your parent. You just kind of come off at either the 2nd carbon or the 3rd carbon or so on and so forth. And so we have to learn how to name these substituents. And we call these substituents alkyls. ALK YL. And you can see I underlined the YL for a reason. Is 1 carbon would be called methyl. They all have YL at the end. Methyl. Which means 2 carbons would be called ethyl. 3 carbons would be called propyl. And 4 carbons would be called butyl. Now you might say, Mr. Aiden, can I have 5 carbons? Well, yeah, you can. It's pentyl, right? And we can continue on. But really, our substituents don't get past, really, it's usually we get about 3 at the most for our substituents. And there's a reason why is it would mess up our naming rules. Okay, so methyl means I have a CH3 group coming off some carbon. Ethyl group means I have a CH2CH3 coming off. Propyl means I have a CH2CH2CH3 coming off. Butyl means I have a CH2CH2CH2CH3 coming off, and you can see so on and so forth. So this would be your substituent coming off your parent chain. Now we do have some variations, like we have one where we have a CH3 and our CH3 coming off of our CH, and you can see that's 3 carbons, but you can see it's kind of split. We call that isopropyl, but we're not going to really talk about these kind of little variations of this. We're just going to go kind of basic today on our alkyl substituents. And so, but just know there's other ways to do these. Rather than having CH2, CH2, CH3 in one long chain, it can be split, and we call that isopropyl. There's all kinds of different names. So let me come back real quick. So do you see how I have a CH3 group and a CH3 group coming off of this parent chain, which means I have 2 methyls coming off of the parent chain. So let me come back. I'll come back to this in just 1 second, this example, but let's go to an easier example. So here I'm going to identify the longest chain. And what I like to do to identify the longest chain is I like to kind of box it. This box tells me what my longest chain is. And so I have 4, which means that is me eat peanut butter. That's but. It's all single bonds, so it's butane. My parent would be butane. Now, do you see how I have a substituent coming off right here? I have a CH3 group. What's a CH3 group called? It's called methyl, okay? Because it's 1 carbon. It is my child or my substituent coming off in red. Okay. Now we got to figure out which carbon is this methyl coming off. Is it coming off if I number my carbons this way? 1, 2, 3, 4. It would be coming off the 3rd carbon, wouldn't it? But let's say I number differently. Let's say I number 1, 2, 3, 4. See how this methyl group's coming off of the 2nd carbon. And this is how we want to number my chain. I always want to number my chain with the number 1 carbon closest to the substituent. Okay, so we would actually call this 2-methyl butane. 2-methyl butane, that would be the full name for this molecule, 2-methyl butane. Now, if I come back, and let's say I number again. Let's say my longest chain was right here. Okay, that's my longest chain. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have a methyl group coming off the second carbon. That's the same. It's 2-methylbutane. So as long as you number the longest chain possible, you're going to get it correct. Now, let's say this CH3 group was coming off of this carbon, CH3. Well, guess what would happen then? Well, guess what? Your numbering changes, doesn't it? Because this carbon is now your first carbon. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so it's still 2-methylbutane. It doesn't matter which group that CH3 comes off. Now let's say, you say, Mr. Aiden, let's say the methyl group is coming off of this last carbon right here. Well, that would change it. It's not methylbutane anymore. Now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's pentane. Pentane. And so let's come back. Let's say I come back. Here's my longest chain right here. Here's my longest chain. Here's my substituent, or my little kid, the methyl group coming off. Let's say I had another methyl group coming off here, but there was that replaced this hydrogen right there. Do you see how I have 2 methyl groups now? How do I name this? Well, I'm going to number my carbons. He's first carbon, second carbon, third carbon, fourth carbon, which means that the parent chain is butane. Now, how many methyl groups do I have coming off? I have one methyl group and another methyl group, which means I call that dimethyl. Dimethyl. 2 methyl groups. Dimethyl. And where are those 2 methyl groups coming off of? They're both coming off of the second carbon. So you would have to call that 2,2-dimethyl. You have to write the number of each methyl group. So we would call that 2,2-dimethyl butane. Now let's say this CH3 is not coming off the second carbon. Let's say I have another substituent coming off of this carbon. Okay? Which means we are back to that, like that. Well, now we have a methyl group coming off of the second carbon, and we have a methyl group coming off of the third carbon. So we would call that 2,3-dimethylbutane. 2,3-dimethylbutane. So let's come back to that example I had right here, this parent chain. I knew the parent chain was hexane. Now let's go to number it. Am I going to number from the left to the right or the right to the left? Well, he would be 1, 2, 3. He would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to number it this way. 1, 2, 3. Remember, I'm always doing the lowest numbering possible. So I have a methyl group coming off of the second one. I have a methyl group coming off of the second one, which means I have to call that dimethyl. Sorry, second one and the third one. So we call that 2,3-dimethyl. And what's the parent chain? Hexane. 2,3-dimethyl hexane. Does that make sense? If you have another methyl group, we would call that trimethyl, and we have to tell where all those methyl groups are coming off of. So let's go through a few examples. Okay, let's go through these examples will hopefully help. So let's see. We're going to get our longest chain. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is the longest chain. Okay. So my longest chain is 6, which means I'm going to call it hexane. That's my parent chain. Now let's look at my substituents. I have a methyl group right here. I have an ethyl group right here. Okay. Now I have to determine, how am I going to number this? Am I going to number from the left to the right or the right to the left? Well, do you see this methyl group's coming off the second one? This ethyl group would be coming off the third one. So we want the least amount. So I'm going to label it this way: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm labeling the number of carbons. And you can see my methyl group's coming off of the second one. So I'm going to call that 2-methyl. This ethyl is coming off of the fourth one. So I'm going to call it 4-ethyl. So 4-ethyl, 2-methyl hexane. So the ethyl is coming off the fourth carbon. The methyl is coming off the second carbon, and its parent chain has 6 carbons long. 4-ethyl, 2-methyl hexane. Now you might say, Mr. Aiden, do I put ethyl first or do I put methyl first? you always put whichever one is in alphabetical order. So ethyl is going to come before methyl. They have rules for all this stuff. It makes it easier when you have rules to do it correctly. So here, let's take a look at our longest chain. Our longest chain is obviously this long chain right here. Let's count how many carbons I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That would be heptane. Heptane. Okay, now am I going to number left to right or right to left? Well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to label it this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from right to left. I have a methyl group coming off right here. I have a methyl group coming off right there. So I have dimethyl, don't I? I have an ethyl group, 2 carbons. Ethyl child coming off here. So I'm going to start with the ethyl because it's alphabetical order. So 4 ethyl. And my methyls are both coming off of the third. So 3, 3 dimethyl. Some of my students don't really like to put 3, 3. They like to just put 3. You have to tell where both of these methyls are coming off. 3, 3 dimethyl heptane. Let's do, let's see another example. Good. So here's another example. I have to take a look at my parent chain. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to circle my longest chain here. Here's my longest chain. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's heptane again. So I have heptane. And what do you know? I have, it's very similar to the last one. I'm going to number my carbons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 carbons. So I have a methyl coming off the second, a methyl coming off the third. I have a ethyl. You can see that's worth a carbon right there. And we have an ethyl coming off of the fourth. So I'm going to call that 4-ethyl 2,3 dimethyl heptane. Was that the exact same one as before? No. This one was 3,3 dimethyl. This one is 4-ethyl 2,3 dimethyl heptane. And I think I have two more examples. Let's go through 2 more examples right here. We're going to go through the longest chain here. The longest chain is this guy right here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is butane. We're going to number our carbons. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what do you know? I have a methyl group coming off here and a methyl group coming off here. So 2 methyl groups. So I'm going to call that 2,2 dimethyl butane. 2,2 dimethyl butane. And here on this one, let's take a look at the longest chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have 8 is the longest I can possibly do. So I'm gonna just circle that. So 8 is octane, isn't it? Octane. And let's take a look. How are we going to number? Are we going to number 1, 2, 3 from the left or 1, 2, 3, 4 from the right? I'm going to label from the left. Always the shortest one. So here are my carbons. I numbered my carbons. My methyl group's coming off of my third. So that's going to be 3-methyl. Now what's coming off of this 5th carbon? I have 3 carbons. So that's a propyl. That's going to be 5-propyl. Which one's lower in alphabetical order? The methyl's lower. So I'm going to call it 3-methyl 5-propyl octane. 3-methyl 5-propyl octane. And that is naming alkanes with little kitties substituents. Hope that made sense. We'll have some practice at naming alkanes and naming alkanes with substituents. See you guys. Bye.